It's officially summertime. Here is part 1 of my summer reading series to kick off your reading enjoyment for this year's summer vacation.
Hey there, I'm Kareem and welcome to an episode of I Read What I Read. Let's start with the queen of beach reads herself, Miss Elin Hilderbrand. Now you can actually pick up any book from Elin and dive right into a story that's going to keep you turning the pages from sunrise to sunset. First up is Nantucket Nights. I've already done a review on this, but I wanted to mention this here because it segued into the next book I'm going to talk about. This is an excellent pool or beach read. When I talk about reading from sunup to sundown, I really did it with this book. It got me hooked and I could not put it down. It didn't take me one day. It took me about 48 hours, but after only starting a few chapters the first day, the second day I read it straight through. I could not put it down. This book will have you wiping your brow. Trust me. Right after Nantucket Nights, I segued into Blue Bistro. Blue Bistro is about a young woman who finds a summer job on Nantucket and eventually starts a relationship with her boss, who is the co-owner of the restaurant, with another woman with whom he shares a very special relationship. Now, I'm not into romance as a genre, but I can accept it when Elin puts it in part of her book because it's usually not the main thing. It's just what's happening. I would say Blue Bistro is part romance novel and part insider into the restaurant business. Because Elin is so thorough with her writing, you could tell that she studied the restaurant business as a part of writing this story. And in fact, at the end, which she often does, she shares insight into the origin of the story and the fact that she actually did sit down with restaurant owners and chefs in order to get an authentic feel for how the restaurant business is run. The story also had a personal aspect for her, as part of the storyline was based on something her husband had experienced. Reading The Blue Bistro really just endeared me more to Elin, especially after coming from a book like Nantucket Nights, which was nothing like The Blue Bistro. The Blue Bistro was a great way to come off of that roller coaster ride that Nantucket Nights had me on, and it was equally as enjoyable. Next up is The Beach Club, which is Elin's very first novel. The story takes place at an exclusive hotel and beach club on Nantucket. There is an interesting cast of characters in this book who we meet quite immediately, as the setup for the opening of the hotel and the club pretty much introduces the story. Now, as I said before, I love me some Elin Hilderbrand. Her writing has actually inspired me to take the trip that I will later this year. But of all the books I've read thus far, this was probably my least favorite. Not because it wasn't good. I'm actually glad I read it, and I think I pretty much had to as I stand. And despite this being one of the lower ones on my list, I'm still very much an Elin cheerleader and know that others will certainly enjoy it. Right after The Beach Club, I jumped into The Love Season. And that's how you know you're a stan, because I go from one to the next. I pretty much felt about this like I did The Beach Club. A good book, wasn't one of my favorites from her, but I'm glad I read it. The story has a bit of suspense and intrigue as the main character is clearly hiding something which makes her mysterious and suspicious. One of the main things that I love about Elin's writing is that though the story takes place in the same setting, at least for the first 30 or so of her books, no two stories are the same. And that makes each book a standout. For over 25 years, she has managed to keep readers coming back for more, even though we all know we're going to be on Nantucket, and in fact, some of us look forward to that. Yet she keeps exploring different aspects of the islands through each of her characters. With over 30 books and counting, and I'm only probably about a third of the way through the list, I have so many more books to read from Elin. I read most of her books on my Kindle, but I did find these at the thrift store. So I have Barefoot, Endless Summer, and Summer People in physical copies. Last up is a book that I'm still reading, but I can already highly recommend it. The book is called Theo of Golden by Levi. The book was originally self-published by the author, who has been a traveling musician for over 30 years. It's his debut novel, and what a way to come charging out of the gate. I not only recommend reading this book, but I strongly encourage you to read it as an audiobook. It's narrated by actor David Morse. Now, I didn't know him by name, but when I saw his picture, I was like, oh, right, I know that guy. David is the perfect narrator for this story, and I personally can't imagine reading it any other way, as his voice adds to the richness of this tender story. I saw in an article that the book is being compared to Matt Haig's Midnight Library, and I can see the comparison even though the storylines are very different. Each book is going to cause you to think, going to cause you to feel, and you will undoubtedly be different at the end than what you were when you began reading the books. These are just a few of the many books that I will be reviewing during my short summer reading series. But chime in below and let me know if you read any of these books or now plan to read any of them, or what's on your summer reading list. If you've enjoyed this episode of I Read What I Read, please consider subscribing and be sure to check out the episodes you missed to see if I've reviewed your favorite yet, or stay tuned for an upcoming episode to see if your favorite makes the list. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.